So here in this video, we will discuss what to expect this upcoming week. This week, among others, is probably one of the most important weeks because the theme of 2024 itself will actually be tested. Nvidia earnings are going to be by far the biggest catalyst. This is larger than the Fed. This is larger than Apple. This is larger than any other company you can name or data point for that measure. In fact, Nvidia earnings are pricing in a larger move for the S&P and the Nasdaq in the options market than your last CPI day, which was only pricing in about 0.7%. Nvidia earnings are pricing in over 1% of a move the next day, either higher or lower. It could go either way. Let me know down below in the comment section if you are bullish, if you're bearish. Maybe you want to hear my take first, and that's just fine. Towards the end of this video, leave your thoughts down below. I will also go over the specific implications for Tesla stock towards the end of this video with Nvidia earnings, the Fed minutes, and some of the other data that we have coming out this week. I'll try to keep this video short, sweet, straight to the point. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you like these shorter, kind of to the point videos. So first up, we have Nvidia earnings. Now, the estimate is about 26.7 billion of top line revenue. EPS estimate is about $5.63 per share or so. I'm sure Nvidia is going to at least meet expectations. The question is, meeting expectations, is that good enough to send the stock higher? That's something I struggle with. Because let's face it, Nvidia recently fell into the 750 range. You're now back in the 900s, about $930 per share or so. I don't know if a meet is good enough for Nvidia. That probably causes a sell-off. Now, judging on what we have heard from other quote-unquote AI semiconductor companies, it really is a mixed bag. Whether you're looking at ASML, TSMC, Broadcom, AMD, Intel, some of those earnings were okay and good by some measures. Some of those earnings made you kind of raise your eyebrow and say, how alive is the AI trade? And that's why you did see some selling in Nvidia during this period of time just about a month ago. Now, Nvidia is a central focus for investors because think about it like this. Nvidia is the brains of the operation here. Nvidia is the muscle of the AI revolution. If you think about all of the excess valuation that has been assigned to a Microsoft, to a Meta, to a Google, or an Amazon, based on this expectation of continued strength in AI, if Nvidia misses, God forbid, well, that has big implications for the path of AI ahead. Thus would have a very negative impact on the rest of your big tech names, which coincidentally have benefited the most from this AI revolution. I don't know if we can call it an AI revolution. Definitely in the markets, it has been an AI revolution. And those big tech names would be hurt the most if this AI revolution takes longer than expected. Now, here's the key with Nvidia. Nvidia actually tends to sell off before or after earnings every single time. Okay, ever since Nvidia started doing well, this was back in 2023 or so. You could say this earnings specifically around, well, specific day was May 25th, 2023. That put AI on everyone's radar. And people have gotten more and more convinced of this, over the past year. Well, Nvidia actually sold off after this first earnings. After you obviously rallied after earnings, right? The next couple of days after, you actually sold off about 9%. And that was the first earnings that really shocked investors. Now, following the next earnings after that, Nvidia, well, rallied on earnings at least a little bit, about 3% the day before earnings. And then you were kind of flat the next day. I don't know if you guys remember this. Nvidia was up 10%, ended up actually closing barely positive. Well, you did indeed proceed to sell off about 20% following that earnings. This earnings right here, November of 2023, Nvidia just outright sold off after earnings. You sold off about 11% or so. Last earnings, what happened? Nvidia sold off before earnings, about 10%, and that gave Nvidia enough wiggle room, if you will, in the valuation for the stock to move higher following earnings. So what tends to happen is you either see a sell-off before earnings and then just a straight-up rally and really no sell-off afterwards, or you tend to see Nvidia do good. Most of the time it does good after earnings. Sometimes it does not much after earnings, but 9 times out of 10, every time over the last 4 quarters, you have seen a sell-off either before or afterwards. So going with that general logic, you will probably get some selling in markets in the beginning of this upcoming week, maybe coming tomorrow on Tuesday. Wednesday is going to be a time where a lot of investors are going to be nervous. If you have a large position in Nvidia, you're probably going to want to grab some hedges, just given the kind of mixed bag we've seen in some of your AI and semiconductor earnings so far. Now, if Nvidia does very well, I think given the stock sitting close to all-time highs, sure, could you rally to $1,000? But I'm not expecting any kind of huge, like 20+% rally, no matter what happens with Nvidia. I actually think the most likely outcome is probably a meet on the current quarter's expectations and a slight guide down for next quarter. That is because expectations for Nvidia's next quarter are way high. Now, forward-looking guidance is the most important thing for Nvidia, really for any other company, at least over the past couple of years. The expectations are crazy, though. Next quarter revenue is expected between $28 and $30 billion. That would be some insane growth. And you're starting to see the law of large numbers that might start to work against Nvidia. Things have just been so good for so long. Maybe this next upcoming quarter is going to be a harder one to beat. And I do think this could set the markets up in kind of a rocky situation overall. Now, coming this week, you have a lot of Fed speakers: Fed Barr, Fed Waller, Fed Jefferson, and Fed Bostic on Monday. You do get Fed Bostic twice at all different times throughout the day. So I'm not going to go through each individual Fed speaker and when they speak. I recommend you guys keep this up on your computer, on your phone, wherever you trade at. It is tradingeconomics.com/calendar. It is a free tool. You never have to pay anything. And it keeps you up to date on what data is coming out, when it's coming out, Fed speakers, anything that you need to know as far as data is concerned. Now, Tuesday's CPI will be coming out for Canada. You have Fed Barkin, Fed Waller, Fed Williams, Fed Bostic, and Fed Barr again on Tuesday. And then you have Fed Bostic, Fed Collins, and Fed Mester as well Tuesday after hours. This is at 7 p.m. So lots of Fed speakers this week. That's obvious. I mean, Fed speakers are really your biggest catalyst for Monday and Tuesday. Now, again, if Nvidia sells off, you've seen a 2% sell off on Friday. If you do get that, pre-earnings sell off, that's definitely going to affect the markets the most, I would imagine, because we kind of already have an idea of what the Fed's going to say. But we did get that CPI report that came out last week, and not a lot of Fed speakers have had time to actually comment on that. So if they have positive things to say, that could definitely be good. On Wednesday, you are going to get existing home sales month over month and just straight up for the month of April. And then the FOMC minutes that come out at 2 p.m. People make a big deal out of this. It usually doesn't move the markets. It can, at least like when it first comes out, but after the markets realize it's old information, you don't tend to see much of a reaction. Now, Thursday, you're not going to have much. You are going to have S&P Global Composite PMI, S&P Global Manufacturing PMI, and S&P Global Services PMI that will be coming out, and the Kansas Fed Composite Index and Kansas Fed Manufacturing Index, as well as Fed Bostic and inflation coming out for Japan. Now, that data comes out at 9:45 in the morning, so 15 minutes after the markets open. And I should mention you have initial jobless claims and Chicago Fed National Activity Index that also comes out at 8:30 in the morning. Now, on Friday, you will get durable goods orders month over month. That's actually expected to fall quite a bit to 0.3% month over month. Last month, you came in at 2.6%. So that is definitely a potentially problematic catalyst. I think the markets are probably going to be reacting most to Nvidia at this point, but definitely still something to watch. And speaking of earnings, you do have other important earnings as well, like Macy's, Lowe's, and AutoZone pre-market Tuesday, Toll Brothers Tuesday and after hours, Target, TJX, Analog Devices, Wednesday pre-market, and then Nvidia, your big dog, Wednesday and after hours, as well as Snowflake, Elf, and a couple other names, Deckers Brands, Thursday and after hours, Ross, Workday, and then you do have Ralph Lauren. TD Bank, not exactly sure why they're reporting so late in this earnings cycle. They typically report a lot sooner, so kind of raising my eyebrow for that one a little bit. But we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, Nvidia is going to carry the brunt of the weight here, but Target can be another important one to tell us how is the consumer doing. And that's really the number one thing that I'm watching for right now. If the consumer is starting to weaken at a faster pace than the markets are expecting, recession odds will rise and stocks will fall, no matter if that means more cuts from the Fed. Now, for this upcoming week, the option strike with the most amount of activity is the 185 call. You have volume of 65,000 with open interest of about 15,000, and that is the most traded option. The second most traded option is the $200 call with volume on Friday of about 18,000 and open interest of about 14,000. And the third most heavily traded option is the 180 call with open interest of about 12,000 and volume of 69,000. So the three most heavily traded options on this week's options chain are calls. And you can see these just for kind of an easy way to put this. The biggest circles here are all green. Okay. These red circles, not nearly as large as the green ones. So that's an easy way of saying the options money for this week is positioned for an upside move in Tesla stock. Now, whether or not that actually happens, I think comes down to Nvidia. Other investors like Tom Lee have suggested, really no matter what Nvidia reports, you probably see a dispersion of capital out of some of your AI stocks into other areas of the markets, a broadening out of stocks, and that could have a positive impact to maybe your portfolio if you're invested in single stocks, maybe interest rate sensitive stocks, let's say a Tesla, a PayPal, a Fubo, a SoFi, a Crocs, a Dollar General, who knows, whatever stock it is, name it. A broadening out of the markets would be a positive for your portfolio. Unless you're just in your, Magnificent 7 stocks, then obviously that's not going to do much for you because the S&P and the NASDAQ could fall and the Russell could outperform. That's a potential impact from Nvidia earnings, especially if you come in with a meet. Like if you come in and you get some kind of crazy beat by Nvidia, big tech's probably going to do well. If you meet, you probably see big tech sell off and a broadening out of our markets. If Nvidia misses, yeah, then of course you're gonna get some very big downside. And that's why this upcoming week is going to be so important. I am bullish on Tesla, especially what you've seen on Friday. You've seen Tesla stock really outperform, and I think this is overall a trend that is going to continue. It's going to be bumpy, of course, but I do think over the next coming months, this is personally my accumulation phase in Tesla. I don't know if we'll ever get sub $200. I don't want to say ever again, but for a long time. So let me know what you think about this information down below in the comment section. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel. If you guys want to come trade with us live in real time, check out that link down below in the description of this video. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.